squeezing, little gums bleeding. Cried every evening, it was all about eating. When I became a teen, it was all about beefing. Now I'm ready for the world. Try and sink my teeth in, stacking extra cheese.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 71, a surprise bonus extra episode in honor of International Podcasting Day, which it is today. So I knew I was going to do something special and bonusy for International Podcasting Day. I just wasn't sure what. And then I saw the news earlier this week that Kelsey Miller and the Refinery 29 crew have launched this amazing project called the 67% Project, which aims to increase representation, visual representation of plus-size women on their website. And I thought it was so fascinating and powerful and just such a needed thing in the world to create this kind of visual representation that I knew I wanted to talk to Kelsey again and have her back on the podcast to talk with us about this project. And then we also caught up about life in general and how things have been going since she released her book and had just a really great little mini episode. So I'm releasing this to you as kind of it's an in-between, I guess. It's in between like a bonus episode and a regular episode, and it's amazing. I'm so excited for you guys to hear this. I'm so excited for you to go check out the 67% Project at refinery29.com, and I'm going to put a bunch of links about it in the show notes for this episode, which you can find on our website. If you just go to christyharrison.com/foodpsych, you'll be able to find the show notes for this episode there. Real quick, before we get into today's episode, we're sponsored by my online intuitive eating course, which you can find at christyharrison.com/course. It's a 13-week online course to help you make peace with food. And my early participants have been saying that it's really helped change their lives and change their views of food. So definitely go check it out and get in on it if you want to fix your relationship with food. And then also, I have a Food Psych Premium membership available. So if you like the podcast, you want to help us keep doing what we're doing, and you want access to a lot of cool bonus content, then head over to christyharrison.com/premium, where you can find out more about this cool content. So basically, it's all of our first season. Our full first season is no longer available anywhere else except as premium content, and it's 28 episodes of great stuff with comedians and actors and writers and therapists and really interesting people talking about their relationships with food. And then I also have an 18-episode bonus series that I did called Ask Food Psych, where listeners wrote in with questions about anything they wanted to ask about: intuitive eating, body positivity, health at every size. And that is all available only as premium content as well. So head over to christyharrison.com/premium to check it out. And I appreciate your guys' support so, so much. And I'm so grateful to have you as listeners. So now, without any further ado, let's go talk to Kelsey Miller. I spoke with her via Skype from her office at Refinery 29. So I'm so excited about your new project, which is called the 67% Project. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, thanks so much. It's really cool. It's called the 67% Project, essentially because 67% of women in the U.S. are deemed plus size, which means size 14 or higher, essentially.
That's amazing.
And of course,
That's amazing.
I know. I think most people don't know that, even though we know, like, we see these other statistics about, like, the average size of a woman being somewhere between a 14 and an 18 in the U.S. I think it simply hasn't occurred to many people that the majority of women are considered plus. Mm-hmm. And of course, on the opposite end of the spectrum, you have media representation, and it's between 1% and 2% of mainstream media images are plus size bodies, and you know, we did our own internal reckoning with that. That's the right word. And, you know, we realized that, you know, on a good day, we were representing, you know, at a higher percentage than most, but it was still somewhere around, you know, 6 or 7%. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we're a company that really, really emphasizes both body positivity, but also body diversity and diversity in other ways as well. And we realized we really weren't putting our money where our mouth was, and we had an opportunity to do so. So there's a few elements here. One big one, though, is that we have reshot our stock photography to create this quote-unquote anti-stock archive. And
I love that part so much. As a person who uses stock photography and uses, you know, social media images, I'm salivating.
Oh, my God. I know. Well, because it's almost funny. If it weren't so awful, it would be completely funny. But when you go on stock websites, you look up a plus-size woman, and it's like the same sad woman sitting with her back to the camera on the edge of the ocean. That's the one I always think of.
Yes.
Or
it's horrifying.
Like, looking down on a scale and like screaming. Or sometimes now you get these images where it's like a plus-size woman, measuring herself as if she's losing weight. And it's like it's completely... It's so dismal. It's so narrow, and we've got to change it because it's not just about representing more and more plus women, but the context. Because on our site and in most publications, a plus size woman appears really only within the context of her body. So it's like plus size fashion or working out while plus size, that kind of thing. It's never just like this is a story about a woman in a career context and we're using a plus size model. It's never normalized. It's always pointed out. So a big goal here was to really take it out of that niche context and out of that very specific conversation and bring her around to the norm, because she is the norm. So that's why the stock photography was really important. And it also, that wasn't talked about as much, but that applies to our design imagery as well, because we do designed images of bodies as well. And, that was important to have on hand too. And, this is an ongoing sort of permanent change here, but the big shift, we're trying to sort of have a little splashy moment here with our launch week by meeting that ratio exactly. So 67% of the images that you see on our site in this particular launch week, on our homepage, on our visually driven social platforms like Instagram and Snapchat, and in our Everywhere newsletter, 67% of the bodies that you see are going to fall within the 67% demographic, size 14 or higher. And that's pretty cool.
I love that. I love that so much because it is, I think the media images we see, there's maybe 1% of images are of plus size people. And then all the rest of the images are actually showing what 1% of bodies in the population look like, right? Like it's completely reversed. So
completely reversed and completely warped our sense of what is normal. And I mean, representation, it can't be overstated what it impacted has. And I don't even need statistics to back me up here, because I know that everybody has that experience of comparing themselves to what they see on a screen or in a magazine or something like that. It's just a natural human response. And when you don't see yourself anywhere, or when you see yourself only in very specific, tiny, small amounts that are usually very critical, or only about your body, then it just teaches you how to look at yourself. Yeah. And it's terrifying how limited, your sort of sense of self can become.
And absolutely. I think it's very dehumanizing the way that most larger bodies are shown, because there's also that trend of, or that trope of having like the headless fatty, quote unquote, where it's like a story about, America's obesity crisis or whatever, like big scary headline. And then it has, a picture of someone's body where you can't see their head. And it's like, what are we saying to people here that, who they are doesn't matter at all. It's just about their fat and how that's bad and needs to be eradicated.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, it's interesting you bring that up, because I ran a story that I think just went up about an hour ago about the threshold of acceptability, which is something that first came up when I was interviewing Virgie Tovar a few months ago, where we were talking just generally about the topics of body-based activism and positivity and everything, and how it became so divisive. And she said, there's a limit where this body acceptance thing goes from a good thing to something else. There seems to be sort of a threshold. And I was like, I want to know what that threshold is. So I did a survey with our team here where we polled 1,000 readers, 18 to 34. And I pulled together, our photo team pulled together a collection of images, and it was a mix of women of different sizes and different ethnicities and skin colors and shapes. It's not, every single person on the spectrum, but it's a pretty broad look. And I did have our photo team actually crop out their heads, because I wanted people to be able to focus entirely on their body and not on their face or their expression. And then we had them do some word association with, giving them a whole big bunch of words and having them first define them as positive, negative, or neutral, and then assigning them to each of these bodies. And of course, there were some very not surprising but very dismaying findings, like, the more plus size a person is, larger a person is, the less acceptable they become. The more visible a plus size body is, the less acceptable it is. We had a lot of the women in the photos were in swimsuits, and there was one plus size woman who was she escaped a lot of the criticism that the other ones got, and then we were trying to figure out what it was, and we realized she's covered head to toe. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's really, really interesting what happens when you take a face away from a body and have people comment on that.
Right. It's like it gives you license, almost in the way that the internet gives people license to say things that they would never say to someone in public because it's behind this veil of anonymity. It's like, someone's anonymous without their head, so you can sort of project whatever you want onto that body. Yep. And was this group of people that you were polling, was this internal, like R29 staffers, or was this? No, it wasn't staffers. It's readers. It's a group of readers who we often poll. They're readers who have basically, I don't know what the criteria is, but they have to read the site a certain amount, and they have to want to participate in these surveys, for example. Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah, we have this really amazing resource where we can speak directly to a reader, and she will speak back loud and clear. A lot of people responded to that survey, and a lot of people were really, really, really upset with us for even running it, for even asking them to look at these bodies and assign words and phrases to them. That's actually sort of heartening. I think it is. Yes, I think people, their hearts in a lot of ways were in the right place, in that they were saying things like, I don't want to judge people. We don't want to be judgy and mean. Yeah. But we are judgmental. We all have inherent bias, and that was really the point here. And, really a very large point of me even publishing this is to challenge others, I think, to look in the mirror and face their own unconscious bias, because that's really the only way anything changes. And it's the most uncomfortable thing. Nobody wants to do it, but we got to do it. Absolutely. That's such a great point. Nobody wants to consciously think about doing it. And yeah, that reaction was probably like, oh, I shouldn't do this. Like, that's not who I want to be. But in reality, that is who we all are at some level, unless we really do a lot of work to surround ourselves with different messages and different images. And even then, like, these unconscious biases still pop up. So like, I think it's an ongoing project probably. That's part of being a person, part of the work of being a person. Yep, exactly. And if you're someone who wants to be, sort of moving like progress forward and challenging those biases in society, just keep doing the work. It's like, it's not, I don't think it's any sort of bad mark on anyone what biases they have come up when they look at different bodies. I think it's like, okay, here's what I need to work on. Here's where my limits are. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And the site is so beautiful. So I think I'm going to try to release this on during the launch week. Friday is actually International Podcasting Day. So I think I was going to do an extra episode for that anyway, like something bonusy. And this is so perfect because people can go to the site during the launch week and see what exactly 67% looks like and experience that for themselves. What comes up when you see this. Thank you. I mean, yeah, it's pretty darn cool. We love talking about this, the invisible shift, because it doesn't look like a plus issue. That was the whole point. It was like, we don't really believe in the plus issue because it's just, it just segregates us more. And inclusion is the overall goal here, Absolutely. Yeah, I think just weaving it seamlessly into all of your editorial content is exactly what needs to happen with more media organizations. And, hopefully you guys are going to help move the needle for everyone, especially by making these stock images available. I feel like that's such a cool service
I didn't mention that part.
Yeah. Let's talk more about that.
Oh, it's so cool. So we're partnering with Getty basically, so that these images that we have shot, have become a resource on Getty Images, and other outlets can grab them and use them in any way they want. And these, I think, you're not going to find many, if any, other plus-size stock images out there like this, where it's like, not women on a scale, not women always in their underwear, not women depressed. I think we've started to see them pop up in a couple places, and it's only been live for 3 days now, not quite 3 days. I think we saw Bumble, the dating app, actually has one up in their advertising now. And it's
oh my God.
It's not calling attention to it. It's not like this is a plus-size dating app. It's just like it's a picture of a girl taking a selfie the way that you do on a dating app. And it was just so cool to see. Because there's such a need, such a desire,
Absolutely. Yeah, I've really grappled with that myself because I do an Instagram feed where I try to have inspirational quotes and thoughts about body positivity and, put it over a background of whatever. And for a while we were doing these backgrounds with people where I was like, I really want more diversity. I really want size diversity specifically, and that's just not available. So the solution was for the temporary workaround that I was doing was just, all right, well, let's do bodies sort of from a distance, or you can't really see exactly who the person is, and it's not really about the body anyway. It's just sort of illustrating a person in some context. And it wasn't, I always was like, I wish I had better options, but this, I'd rather show a thinner person, looking like they're having a good day or taking care of themselves or whatever, versus a larger person looking miserable and, measuring their waist, because I'm not going to do that. That's, the antithesis of what I'm trying to do. But it was interesting. I actually had a conversation with a follower on my feed who was like, I love your quotes and I love your images and I really want to share them in this feminist group that I'm a part of. But, I feel uncomfortable sharing these images that are very sort of size normative and heteronormative. And I was like, oh my God, even this sort of temporary workaround that I've done to try not to be showing just all the same type of body all the time, is still hurting someone, and that sucks. So I decided to stop showing images at all until I could find images that were really representative of what I wanted to show. And so I just set a budget and sent my assistant to the Getty site to buy a bunch of 67% project images. So I will be using those in my Instagram very soon, and possibly my website as well.
That is so exciting. That is so exciting.
It's the answer to my prayers, really, because I actually wrote to a friend of mine who's working at a design firm to be like, do you know anything like this? Is there any stock image site available that does this kind of stuff? And he referred me to one site that was oh, this is sort of the cutting edge, stock image website right now, and they might have some more diversity. And it was ethnic diversity for sure, gender diversity, sort of, whatever. Yeah. But size diversity, hell no. That does not exist anywhere, really. So
I know. What's really cool, just one more thing is, so we've really incited readers to kind of join in with this, and even we have the 67 hashtag, which is really something that's about people of all sizes being able to be a part of this, because just like feminism is about the equality of women, but it's really a benefit to everybody in our world. This project is also a benefit for everybody in our world, and it involves being seen and actively seeing people in this representation. In this demographic. So even looking at that hashtag, you're seeing so many people, post pictures either of themselves or of women in this demographic that they really admire. And it's all different contexts and it's all different looks. And it's so exciting. And some of people have actually emailed us and they're like, I'm an amateur plus model, blah, blah, blah. Can I be a part? And that's really how this is going to grow for us. Because plus models are, not generally actually in the retail demographic of plus size. So that's also a narrow field and its own complicated matter. So we've achieved this really by our incredible photo team casting people off the street or off the internet or off people emailing us or tagging on Instagram, and that is how it's going to grow. So, if you're curious, I would highly recommend checking out that hashtag or similar hashtags, because there are so many people of so many different lifestyles, even by looking at the pictures that we're seeing, that are eager to be seen.
I love that. That's a cool resource because, anyone out there who's looking to break into modeling or whatever could be a part of this.
Yeah.
Oh,
absolutely.
That's fabulous. I'm going to link to all of this stuff in the show notes so people can see the the images, and then also the hashtag and the Getty site for anyone who's, in media and wants to use those images.
Great.
I definitely know a lot of people who would want to get on board. Yes, definitely.
Awesome.
Well, how's life in general since the book? Have you been, I'm sure you've been super busy with this project, so that was kind of the next.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, busy. Busy is a very good adjective for me, just generally. No, things are great. I mean, it's really wonderful to see how the book has grown and taken off and is still really out there. I'm still promoting it. That's a window that's sort of wide open, which I was not expecting. So it's really wonderful. I hear from people, I would say probably every day, who are just finding it now, and it's really cool. And I'm thinking about, book 2. So
that's exciting.
That should be coming. Yeah, I'm in the beginning stages of that process. So more. That's what's going on with me. Just more of it.
Just more of all the good stuff.
Yeah. I'm still working on topics related to intuitive eating and body positivity and fitness. I've really, really been enjoying doing some more fitness coverage recently and doing a sort of what I call the rational fitness challenge. But I'm also branching out into, back into some of the areas that I wrote about before Anti-Diet, before the book. And that's really been exciting too, to sort of stretch out in a bigger way as a writer and a lady.
I love that. I think it's so interesting too to think about like our trajectories with recovery and body positivity and all of this stuff, where like, in my experience anyway, it was like when I was super disordered, all I wanted to write about was food and exercise and bodies and, all of that stuff. And I was just like down the rabbit hole with anything to do with nutrition. But as I've recovered and, even though my sort of brand is like loosely about nutrition and food, I feel like it's just becoming about so much more, because I don't actually like care as much about food anymore. I feel like I'm just moving forward in life, and that's kind of the normal trajectory of things, where when you recover, you can really branch out and like be a whole person again.
It's pretty cool, right? It's a little, surprising, I suppose. But I think it's pretty cool. And I think it's also great to talk about that in the context of, your show, which I imagine is listened to by so many people who are in various stages of recovery or just, have food issues, meaning like basically everybody.
Right.
But to come to a show like that and just to be reminded that, by the way, there's more to life than this, actually. And, when you're not so occupied with this, the rest of your life kind of comes flooding in, is a really important thing to remember. Yes,
I know. It's like there's light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not, it doesn't have to be that far off, really. You can. And I actually, sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no, go ahead. I was just going to say, I interviewed, oh God, was it Elise Resch or Evelyn? Yeah, it was Elise Resch. About a month ago for an article that hasn't come out yet, but will on the Anti-Diet Project soon. And I was saying to her, I was talking about, a particular food issue that that I had sort of recently started struggling with again, like one particular difficult food for me, and how I had tackled it in a different way, and how I also, sort of comforted myself by saying things like, this is okay. It's like, this is the kind of thing that you're probably going to have to deal with it, to a certain degree over and over and over again throughout your life. And that's all right. Not thinking that I have to get to an end to a perfect place where everything is all better forever. And she sort of stopped me and she's like, well, I actually think you probably will get to a place with, that particular food item or any particular food item where it's not going to come up again and again and again. I think it just takes a lot longer than you think, and you can't sort of be looking to the end of the tunnel, but I think it's there,
That's such a great point.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I know. I think it's like both. It's all of it, like when you're still in it and you're still having these issues come up again, it's like you kind of just have to be compassionate and be like, it's okay. Like, even if you sort of think of yourself as being really far along in the intuitive eating journey or the body positive journey, like, of course these things can still come up, and of course that it's okay, but then also, like, yeah, there probably will be a time eventually down the line when that's just put to rest, and like to have hope for that too, without using that hope to like berate yourself for not being there, which is
very tough balance. Yeah.
Super tough. Yeah, no, I totally feel you. I think the same thing though. I actually think back to when I started the podcast 3.5 years ago, when I was recovered, like, behaviorally and mostly mentally, but I still thought of myself as a disordered eater. I was like, I remember in the intro to the first episode of the podcast, I was like, I still have food, or I'm a nutritionist and I have food issues, and I'll probably always have food issues because that's just sort of the human condition, and that was kind of my framing for, like, when I first started the podcast, was that everybody has some food issues and let's talk about them. And I think that is true, but I also think, my self-conception has changed so much since then, because I've realized, like, no, I actually am past that. Like, when I started the podcast, it was like 6 months since my last binge. So I think I was still like, I could binge again at any time, Yeah. But now it's been like 3.5 years since my last binge, or whatever, 4 years. And it's like, oh, so actually that's not a thing anymore. Like, that's not something I ever think about. That's not something that, is a coping skill that would come up even in tough times, which I've had since then. And it just, it's like that is laid to rest. So.
Oh man, that's incredible. But it's also, I know, like, an identity shift,
Totally.
It's
yeah.
weird.
It is, because I think I was sort of still in that identity as a disordered eater, even while sort of practicing not being disordered, and the way that I was living my life was not anymore. It was actually not until I did an internship at an eating disorder treatment center in my training as a dietitian that I was like, oh, because I read Ellen Satter's little thing about what is normal eating. She has this amazing passage. It's like, normal eating is everything, basically, and sort of relating to food in a really flexible way. And I was like, I do this, I do like, oh, like everything I'm doing fits within this context. And it was sort of a frame shift for me of like, oh, I don't actually still have these lingering food issues. I just have life, I'm just a normal person relating to food. And it was very liberating to realize that.
That's amazing. Can you send that to me?
I will. Yes. And I'll put that in the show notes too.
Please
yes,
do.
Yes, absolutely. I was like, this is everything when I saw it. So yeah.
It's so important to have those reminders. And it's also so hard to know, like, when or if the shift has happened. I mean, I haven't gotten to the bottom of that yet, clearly, but I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay.
Yeah, no, totally. It's an unfolding process, I'm sure. And like, you're on the path and you're doing amazing things while also still working that out. I think that's like the coolest thing, about your journey, and that, everybody else can maybe take a page from too, is like, you don't have to not be speaking out about body positivity and making a change, even if you're still working on some things of your own. Like, you can do both. You don't have to be perfect to be a leader in this movement,
So important. I say this probably, I mean, so much this comes up, I cannot overstate it, that, we're so used to having a pedestal or a goal or a thing that we have to fit to. And when you let go of that, with body stuff, I think for most people, it just becomes a new pedestal. And the new pedestal is like, I have to be 100% confident and body positive all the time.
Right.
And it's like, come on. Nobody is. Nobody is. And you have to just like let go of the pedestal. And the other thing, as you point out, is like you cannot wait. The older I get, the more I realize how much I waited for so many things. Mm-hmm. And I absolutely do regret it. And I don't waste a lot of time on that regret because I'm well aware of it. But you cannot wait to be anything in particular, to do something with your life. You have to just like keep going and do it in whatever, do it the best you can right now.
Yes, absolutely. Because I think that waiting for something, for everything to be perfect, or like once I get this, then I'll do everything else I want to do in my life. That's such a vestige of the diet mentality. That's like, diets tell you that once you lose weight, or once you get the perfect body, or once you diet perfectly or whatever, then your life starts and you get everything and it's all magical. But it's like, when you drop the dieting and sort of are moving away from the diet mentality in that, I think it's important to remember, like, also we have to move away from this framing that like now the new goal is just perfect body positivity. And once I get that, I'll be able to do everything. Cause it's, it's that same framework that's been used to oppress you in the past, basically.
To the point where, I don't know, at least for me, it became a comfort zone. Mm-hmm. And I found it really frustrating and angering that I had to sort of be responsible 100% for my own life, for my relationships, for my friendships, for my career, and like really, when it comes down to it, not blame it on anything else, or not say, oh, I'm not not doing this because of my body, or I'm not doing this because I haven't fixed my food stuff yet. Mm-hmm. There's really no good reason to wait, and it's hard to confront that responsibility, but that is the only way. That is the only way, because it's never going to be perfect. Never.
Yeah. Nothing's ever perfect. Well, on that note, tell us where people can find more about the 67% Project, and where they can find you.
Absolutely. Well, for the 67% Project, you can just go right on over to refinery29.com. You can take a look at the Instagram feed, which I think is really cool because it's all pictures, so you can see quite clearly the shift that's happened. But I would recommend poking around the website. And, we haven't done a ton of on-the-nose content about what we're doing specifically. It's just sort of a handful of very carefully curated pieces, because we really want this to be mostly about the normalization, and not a plus size issue or something like that. Mm-hmm. So, but you can find some great work on there. I edited a piece from Saray Walker, who's wonderful.
Love her.
Going up from Virgie Tovar. We love her too, of course.
Yes.
We got some exciting interviews. I got to interview Danielle Brooks 2 days ago, and she's the bee's knees.
Oh, she's so great. Tasty from Orange is the New Black.
She is the greatest. And we're going to have more from her and more. So go check that out. And in terms of finding me, you can find my anti-diet project still on the website every other Monday, and KelseyMiller.com. And you can find me at Ms. Kelsey Miller, MS Kelsey Miller, on Instagram and Twitter. Oh, and I'm on Facebook. You can find me there, too.
Ooh, nice.
I'm everywhere.
You're everywhere. Well, thank you so much. I'm so excited to share this with people.
Thank you. Me too.
So that's our show. Thanks again so much to our guest for being here, and to you guys for listening. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes or Android or whatever your favorite podcast app is if you haven't done so already. Meanwhile, I'd love to stay in touch with you online. The best way is by email. So if you join my email VIP list, you'll get exclusive tips about intuitive eating and body positivity, and updates about all my work, as well as new episodes of the podcast. So if you go to christyharrison.com/email, you can sign up there. That's christyharrison.com/email. And I would love to have you guys all on my VIP list. And then you can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter. We're at Food Psych on Facebook and Food Psych Pod on Twitter. And then I am also on Instagram, just me this time. I don't have a separate account for the podcast, but I'm on Instagram at Christy Harrison, and the first I is a 1. The music you're hearing behind me now is by a band called AWOL, and the track is called Food, used under the Creative Commons license. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, stay psyched.
Stupid or scared, no work in the kitchen now. Who put you there in that perfect position now? Bullies want your food, and you ain't really beef. Have you ever